Welcome to Forbidden Texts. What you are about to see may shock you. It may surprise you, but will definitely challenge everything you thought you knew. Stick around until the end to discover the forbidden knowledge that they don't want you to have.
You thought waking up would set you free, didn't you? That one moment of spiritual clarity, that rush of transcendence, you thought it was the end of suffering. But here you are, more lost than before. Because what no one tells you is that awakening isn't the finish line. It's the start of a war with everything you thought you were. Welcome to Forbidden Texts, where we explore ancient knowledge and forgotten wisdom. Most people never win that war. They stay stuck in the glow of their awakening, mistaking the light for the work. They talk about oneness, love, and peace while silently drowning in unhealed pain. You've seen them. Maybe you've been one of them. But there's a different path. One that doesn't just wake you up, it sets you free. If you're still here at the end of this, you'll know exactly what it takes to walk that path. It's the first test, and how you handle it will determine whether you heal or just live as another broken soul with a spiritual vocabulary. Stay with this. The truth is far darker and far more liberating than you think. Awakening feels like a breakthrough. The ego dissolves, the mind quiets, and for a moment, everything makes sense. The universe hums with clarity. But then, it doesn't. The bliss fades. The confusion returns. And the ego, it doesn't die. It adapts. Now it speaks the language of spirituality, wrapping itself in terms like surrender and oneness, while hiding the same old wounds beneath a new, enlightened mask. This is where most people get stuck. They chase that first high, that intoxicating moment of cosmic clarity, like addicts. Meditation, breathwork, plant medicine ceremonies, anything to feel that divine connection again. But here's the trap. Awakening is never about feeling high. It's about becoming whole. And wholeness requires you to go where the bliss won't follow, into the parts of yourself you've spent your life running from. People stay there for years, sometimes decades, certain they've transcended suffering while their unresolved trauma quietly runs the show. But you're different. Right. You want more than the illusion. You want the truth, even when it burns. And to get there, you'll need to step into the place that sends most people running, the shadows of your own soul. Because that's where the real healing begins. And if you can stand in that darkness without flinching, you'll find something far more powerful than the fleeting highs of awakening. The spiritual world loves to talk about the light, ascension, enlightenment, higher vibrations. But what about the descent? The terrifying drop from bliss into despair, the dark night of the soul. This is where most people quit. They call it a spiritual crisis. In reality, it's the initiation. The dark night isn't a mistake. It's the system working exactly as it should. Suddenly, your meditations feel empty. Your practice is useless. The universe that once felt so alive goes silent. This is the moment most people break. They retreat into distractions, spiritual communities that promise endless light, or back into the numbness of the material world. But the dark night isn't there to destroy you. It's there to show you what's been controlling you all along. Think about it. How much of your spiritual journey has been driven by pain you're afraid to face? The need to feel special, to escape loneliness, to be saved by some cosmic force. These aren't spiritual callings. They're survival strategies from a wounded psyche. And the dark night strips away the illusions, forcing you to see them. But here's the secret. The dark night doesn't end when the pain stops. It ends when you stop running from it. When you sit in that void, without answers, without guarantees, and choose to feel everything. The grief, the rage, the emptiness. Most won't do it. But if you do, you'll discover that the darkness was never the enemy. It was the doorway. And what waits on the other side is the healing most people never find. This is the healing crisis, the moment when spiritual awakening turns into emotional collapse. And it happens for a reason. Awakening forces energy through a system that isn't prepared to handle it. Unresolved trauma, suppressed emotions, buried fears, all of it comes surging to the surface. The spiritual experience opened the door, but the emotional system lags behind. This dissonance creates chaos. One part of you feels infinite, another part is still trapped in the past, reliving the same old wounds. Most people misread this as failure. They think, I must be doing something wrong. I had enlightenment, and now I'm broken. But this collapse isn't the end of awakening. It's the start of healing. Here's the truth most spiritual teachings avoid. You cannot spiritually bypass your nervous system. The healing crisis feels like regression. But it's not. It's the moment the body says, we're safe enough to finally feel this. That terror of abandonment, that unshakable sense of unworthiness. It's been there the whole time, driving your behaviors, your relationships, your spiritual pursuits. Awakening just made it impossible to ignore. Now comes the decision point. Will you soothe the symptoms and chase another spiritual high? And when you stop resisting it, you step into a power that no spiritual high can replicate. There's a moment in every healing journey when the mind tries to negotiate. Haven't I done enough? I've meditated, journaled, cried my eyes out. Why am I still stuck? And that's when you realize awakening isn't enough. Insight isn't enough. If you want to heal, you have to stop waiting for the mind to save you and start working with the body. It lives in the tension in your jaw, the clenching in your stomach, the way your chest tightens when someone says, I love you. It's not just a story from the past. It's a lived, physical experience still happening in the present. Here's the harsh truth. Awakening can't erase what the body remembers. Spiritual breakthroughs give you perspective, but healing requires reprogramming the body's response to safety, connection, and vulnerability. This is the turning point. The moment when awakening moves from concept to reality. And it starts with radical responsibility. No more blaming external forces. No more waiting for some cosmic event to liberate you. You have to choose to step into the discomfort, to feel what you've been avoiding for decades. And when you do, something counterintuitive happens. The sensations you feared, the heaviness, the anxiety, the grief, they stop being enemies. They'll intellectualize the process, staying trapped in an endless loop of self-analysis. But if you're willing to drop out of your mind and into your body, you'll discover that the healing you've been chasing has always been right here, waiting for you to feel it. And the moment you do, the past loses its grip. Forever. The wounded child never disappears. It just learns how to hide. Behind achievements, behind relationships, behind spiritual identities. And when awakening hits, it shakes those defenses. Suddenly, the child's voice, long buried beneath adult logic and spiritual jargon, begins to surface. This voice doesn't speak in philosophy. It speaks in raw, unfiltered emotion. I'm not enough. I'll be abandoned. I don't matter. These aren't abstract fears. They're the foundation of your identity. And until they're healed, no amount of spiritual awakening will set you free. The inner child isn't some abstract psychological concept. It's the living memory of how you learned to survive in a world that didn't meet your needs. If you felt unseen, your child, self-concluded, I must become perfect to earn love. If you were criticized, you learned, I must stay small and quiet to avoid pain. And if you were abandoned, you internalized, love is dangerous. That's why people often feel more broken after awakening, not less. The mistake, trying to bypass the inner child by thinking positive or raising your vibration. The wounded child doesn't need high vibes. It needs you. It needs presence, honesty, and a willingness to feel its pain without judgment. Reparenting isn't about reciting affirmations. It's about becoming the adult your younger self never had. Sitting with the discomfort when every cell in your body wants to run. Speaking words of reassurance when shame surges. Allowing the tears, the rage, the grief, all of it, without rushing to fix it. Most won't do this work. They'll get lost in spiritual ideals while their inner child continues to sabotage their relationships, their purpose, their peace. But if you choose to meet that child, to truly listen, you'll unlock a level of healing that no spiritual insight can offer. They mistake transcendence for growth. But true spirituality isn't about escaping the world. It's about integrating it, embodying your awakening in the messiness of everyday life. Grounded spirituality demands that you bring the light into the body, into your relationships, into your work.
A quick message. This space has become something truly special for many of us. A community of people on a shared journey of spiritual growth, healing, and awakening. Your comments and stories inspire me every day, and it's clear there's so much more we can create together, especially since this path can feel lonely at times. That's why we've created a spiritual space on Patreon, a sanctuary for deeper connection, exclusive content, and meaningful conversations with others from this channel who share your journey. Together, we can build something uplifting, authentic, and spiritually powerful. If this resonates with you and you'd like to be part of something bigger, whatever you're going through, you'll find the link in the description or pinned in the comments. Your membership not only helps support the channel, but also helps grow this beautiful community. Let's create something amazing together.
It asks, can you stay connected to your spiritual truth when someone triggers you? Can you hold compassion when you're face with your own shadows? Most people can't. They compartmentalize their spirituality, keeping it locked in meditation rooms and retreat centers. But real growth happens when spiritual principles become embodied practices. Integration begins with presence. Not the kind that happens when you're sitting alone in silence, but the kind that shows up when you're running late, when someone challenges your beliefs, when old triggers resurface. In those moments, your body wants to react the old way, to defend, to shut down, to run. But here's the practice. Pause. Feel the sensation, not the story. The tension in your chest, the heat in your face, the urge to react. Stay with it. This is what spiritual teachings mean when they talk about presence. Not blissful detachment, but grounded engagement with reality as it is. When you master this, life changes. You no longer seek experiences of transcendence. Instead, you walk through life deeply connected, not above it, not beyond it, but fully within it. This is the bridge most never cross. But if you do, you'll discover that the extraordinary isn't found in escaping the mundane. It's found in being fully present with it. There's a belief that spiritual awakening is a single, life-altering event. One big moment of clarity, and suddenly, you're free. But that's the myth. The reality, awakening is a spiral. You don't reach a peak and stay there. You cycle through layers, deeper, darker, and more nuanced each time. And every time you hit a new layer, the mind panics. I already dealt with this. Why is it back? But healing isn't linear. The wounds you're facing now aren't new. They're old patterns showing up with more subtlety. They see the repetition as failure and retreat to old patterns. But the spiral isn't punishment. It's mastery in disguise. The mind craves a finish line. It wants to believe, once I heal this, I'm done. But awakening doesn't care about your mental timelines. Growth is infinite. Healing is infinite. The real work isn't in finishing. It's in learning how to stay present through every new layer of discomfort. And here's the paradox. The more you accept that the process never ends, the freer you become. Resistance traps you in cycles of frustration. Surrender propels you into deeper layers of peace. This doesn't mean passivity. It means active engagement with whatever arises, without the demand that it disappear. Integration is this ongoing dance between awareness and embodiment. The insights come easy, the embodiment takes time. And the mind will always try to cling to the latest spiritual realization as the final one. Don't fall for it. They chase it like a drug, convinced that real spirituality means floating above life's mess. But if you've made it this far, you already know the truth. Awakening is pointless unless it transforms how you live, love, and show up in the real world. So what does that look like? It looks like owning your patterns instead of blaming others. It looks like feeling the rage, the grief, the fear, and not collapsing into it or running away. It looks like making the hard choice to stay present when every part of you wants to shut down. True healing isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Can you stay connected when the ego flares up? Can you soften when your defenses scream at you to attack or withdraw? Spirituality doesn't live in peak experiences. It lives in these micro moments of awareness and choice. And here's the real test. Can you integrate the awakening into your relationships? Healing isn't found in isolation from these moments. It's found in how you respond to them. This isn't easy. In fact, it's exactly where most people give up. They return to the safety of spiritual theories, endless self-help content, or the high of the next meditation retreat. But if you can stay in the discomfort, if you can bring your awareness into the raw, unfiltered mess of everyday life, that's when the real shift happens. And when it does, something extraordinary occurs. Life itself becomes the practice. The triggers become teachers. The challenges become gateways. And the person who once needed external highs to feel spiritual becomes someone who radiates presence in the ordinary. Most people don't make it here. They stay stuck in the awakening, mistaking the map for the territory. But if you've stayed with this until now, you've already stepped beyond that illusion. You've seen what it really takes to heal. And as the layers keep peeling back, you'll realize the truth. The greatest awakening isn't about leaving life behind. It's about being fully, unapologetically alive. Most people wake up and then go back to sleep. But if you've made it this far, you're different. You've seen the trap. You felt the pull to go back to the familiar and resisted it. And now you understand something most never will. Awakening is easy. Healing is rare. Healing isn't about knowledge. It's not about how many books you've read, how many retreats you've attended, or how often you can talk about the ego and the universe. Healing is about courage. The courage to feel what you've avoided your entire life. The courage to stop searching for the next breakthrough and start living the truth you've already found. The process never looks the way the mind expects. You won't feel like a glowing, enlightened master. You'll feel raw, exposed, and deeply human. And that's exactly the point. Spirituality isn't about transcending your humanity. The old triggers, they don't disappear overnight, but they lose their grip. The past, it still exists, but it no longer controls you. And the future, it stops being an escape and becomes a place of genuine possibility. Most people never reach this point. They get lost in the pursuit of more awakening, more insight, more external proof of their growth. But you know better now. You've felt the truth. Healing isn't found in the mind's endless questions. It's found in the body's willingness to feel. So where do you go from here? Forward. Not towards some distant finish line, but deeper into the present moment. Deeper into yourself. The path isn't linear. It's a spiral. And every time you cycle through it, you'll find more clarity, more freedom, more strength. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll realize the person who once felt shattered by awakening has become someone who can hold life in all its complexity without breaking. Someone who doesn't just talk about awakening, but lives it. Fully. Authentically. Unapologetically. Most people don't heal after spiritual awakening. But you already are. You've made it this far, and that alone sets you apart. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a lifelong process that most abandon the moment it gets real. Here's the truth. Awakening without healing creates spiritual distortion. People become obsessed with abstract concepts like non, duality, ascension, or soul missions, but their relationships remain toxic, their emotional patterns untouched. What parts of yourself are you still afraid to feel, to face, to own? That's where the work is. Not in the next spiritual book or meditation app. Not in another psychedelic trip or weekend retreat. The work is in the moments when your nervous system screams that you're unsafe, and you stay present anyway. This is what most people don't understand. Safety isn't something you wait for. The fear of abandonment, the anxiety of not being enough, the need to control everything, it all begins to dissolve. Not through force, but through presence. And when that happens, life changes. You stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from genuine awareness. You stop chasing spiritual highs and start finding depth in the ordinary. You realize that healing doesn't make you invincible or perfect. It makes you real, grounded, human. Most people resist this level of vulnerability. They cling to their awakening as a badge of identity. But you're not here to perform spirituality. You're here to live it, to embody it, to become the rare person who can sit with the darkness without flinching, who can love without armor, who can stay present when others shut down. The world doesn't need more awakened minds. It needs more healed hearts. Hearts that have walked through the fire, faced the shadows, and come out not with spiritual superiority, but with genuine, grounded compassion. This is the path you've chosen. Most people never make it here. They wake up and stop there. But you've gone deeper. You've chosen to do what most won't. And because of that, you'll experience what most never will: freedom. Not the fleeting, euphoric kind, but the quiet, unshakable freedom of a soul that has finally come home to itself.